Hello, Nation. Today, I have my good friend and colleague, Dr. Bill Polonsky, who is a world-famous touchy-feely guy, the founder and president of the Behavioral Diabetes Institute, really the only organization that I know of that focuses on the emotional and behavioral issues of people with diabetes. And we are doing this video from two different cities within San Diego, being very good at our social distancing. Well, the bottom line is everybody's going through a tough time, and everyone deals with these emotional issues differently. And that's why I asked my good friend Bill to come on and help us out, frame our thoughts a little bit.
Oh, I'm glad to be here, Steve. Thanks. Again, we know these are crazy times. No one's quite sure what's in store. It's tough for all of us to be coping with what's going on right now. We do know, and I've heard you say this as well, that the vast majority of us are going to be okay, even if you have diabetes, but that doesn't make the worry go away. Since odds are good over the next few months that people we know are going to get hurt, and people are going to be hurt either health-wise or financially, and it's worrisome times, but we know it won't last forever. That's one thing we have to keep reminding ourselves. And of course, as a result of all this, people are hurting emotionally. We know lots of folks who have become incredibly anxious, panicky, depressed. They're just going crazy, lonely, bouncing off the walls in their own homes. And of course, if you're not feeling any of these things, then we're really worried about you, because we know this is pretty normal if you're feeling any of that stuff.
Bill, I've talked to a lot of people, and they are basically frozen with fear. And that's not good. I think you have to break it down and really ask yourself, what are you fearful of? What you can do to alleviate that fear. I don't know. I'm not a clinical psychologist, but I play one on the TV.
Well, we know these things make sense, right? We know that this is what happens in terms of anxiety and depression happens when you're in a situation where you don't know what's going to happen, where the outcomes aren't predictable. We're not so sure we can really influence what's happening, except through social distancing. And the end in sight is not yet in sight. So it makes sense that we'd all be feeling this way. And of course, it's also kind of like diabetes, where we're also dealing with a disease where, again, you're not quite sure what's predictable, what's going to happen, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Well, so I'm hoping everybody is going to be, sorry.
No problem. It's sorry for interrupting. These things are hard not to do, the setups, but I just wanted to add on top of the usual worries, but people with diabetes are hearing on television every 5 seconds, if you have diabetes, you're more at risk. You're likely to die much faster and not get over this thing very quickly if you do get over it. So that's kind of another layer of anxiety or worried. So it can be compounded in people with diabetes for sure.
Yeah, and of course, when you hear that, it can be reassuring if you know your blood sugars are in a safe place. But it's also even more devastating if you feel like, oh my God, I can't even get my diabetes under control. And the core for all of these things, for everybody, is just this underlying feeling of powerlessness, and that's what the core of depression is for most people. When you feel like bad things are happening, and there's nothing you can really do about it. But understanding it's about powerlessness also gives us a clue about how we can move forward and what we can do to help ourselves and other people cope. And that's what I want to talk about.
Yeah, well, let's talk about the big picture first, the larger principles.
Sure. So there's a couple major things we want to put forward, and then we'll get really into sort of tips. Very broadly, we know if we can put forward and help other people and ourselves finding some way to gain some kind of control over your life, even if it's in little teeny tiny ways. It doesn't have to be the big ways, but feeling some sense of control even over little things can matter. We know that helping ourselves and others gaining some perhaps new or different perspectives on what's going on and how we think about things are unfolding. We want to think about applying just basic principles of stress management and just finding new innovative ways to cope with primarily the isolation, which is really tough for folks. Yeah, so those are broadly what I think about.
Well, I appreciate that. I think it's good to start off with the broad because not everyone's going to react differently, and not everyone's going to have the same issues that relate to the other folks maybe. So it's good to start off broad. Well, let's go into some specific things. We can't cover all the bases here, but I think the purpose of this short video is food for thought, get people thinking in the right direction.
Sure. So there's a bunch of things we want to mention. I mean, one is, and it's sort of in many ways too easy to say this, but it's important now, which is you got to just take one day at a time or one moment at a time. You can just drive yourself crazy, as we all do, worrying about what's going to happen next week, what's going to happen in a month, what's going to happen to my retirement. I mean, who knows what's going to happen to my job? Even to do that in little ways if possible, but can we put aside worry about the future, even for a few moments, and focus on what do I have to do today? What's today going to be like? In any ways, moments we can do that would be very powerful. So another thing is we just want to remind everyone to, again, just do what you can. I mean, odds are good if you're stuck at home like so many of us. You've got some free time on your hand. So maybe it's time to put a little more effort into simple things. It might be like putting more effort into your diabetes care, right? It can be something nothing to do with your diabetes. It could be rearranging your sock drawer or taking on a new habit or learning how to juggle. But think about not what you can't do so much, but what you can do in just moment to moment. That makes sense?
It makes perfect sense, except I did clean out my sock drawer. I couldn't find 2 socks that matched. That was the problem. Back to Costco to buy 12 more of the same color, so I don't have to go through that. Yeah, it's a great time to start doing things that you haven't had time to do. You know what I'm doing personally? I'm contacting at least 2 or 3 people a day, email or phone call, that I haven't talked to in years. I said, now's a good time to hook up again.
Yeah. And certainly that's one of the keys I think many people are discovering to keep your sanity is connecting with other people, whether that's through email, messaging, Facebook, whatever it might be. And as I think you've discovered, and so many have discovered, not only is that good for us, but it's really a gift for other people because other people are feeling the same way. So I think that's really key.
It's so true. Everybody appreciates it. What next, Bill?
Well, again, in terms of management, what I remember about just good old physical activity. You know, not only is physical activity good for diabetes, good for your overall health, but it's one of the most powerful ways we can address anxiety and depression and sleeplessness. So if you're stuck in your house, it might mean walking around your house or jumping up and down or something else. But you can get out in the world if it's safe to do so. Any kind of physical activity, regular physical activity, can be very, very powerful. So find a way to do it if it's at all possible. And the last thing I wanted to mention is, if possible, it's important to stay informed, but you probably want to make sure you have periods of time during your day or your week where you can limit the news. The news organizations, that many of them at least, are pretty good at giving us the truth and the facts, but you can get a little obsessed with it, and it can get overwhelming and profoundly depressing. And so you want to be informed, but also distract yourself in productive ways and not be watching it all the time. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. And it's probably a good time to mention here that, on our website, we do have 3 Facebook groups, one for people with type 1, type 2, and then the significant other type 3s. And I think that's just another way to communicate with people, look for a response back. And we've had a lot of activity lately, and especially in the last 3 or 4 weeks, for the right or the wrong reason. But it's just important for you to express yourself and look for validation, look for more friends. It's important.
And speaking of your Facebook groups and just the TCOID website, I just want to mention one last thing, which is, even though we're put forwarding some ideas about how you can cope and address these emotional issues that we're all going through, we know we have a lot of people watching this right now who figured out some awesome things, and we'd like to hear from them. So I'm hoping they will chime in on their Facebook groups or send notes to TCOID directly, and perhaps we can do another video later based on what we've heard. So please send in your comments about how are you keeping your sanity? What have you learned? You're the expert, so we'd like to hear from you.
I like that idea, Bill. We'll come back with all the ideas, and we read every blog, every comment. So if you know my personal email, it's Steve, Steve, @tcoid.org. happy to email me. I'll share with Bill, and we'll go from there. So, Bill, any parting words before we say goodbye?
I just hope everyone will hang in there and just remember, we will get through this. This is going to end. And it's easy to say, I know, but it's important to remember that we're going to get through this together.
As my Dexcom goes off, I'm going up. All right, everybody. Well, thanks so much. So long, nation. Stay healthy.
Hang in there, guys.